In this lecture, we move on to the next subtopic, that is data acquisition and preparation. So this subtopic is very relevant towards your project development. So you have to make sure that you understand how to apply data preparation when completing your project. So what is data preparation? So it is often referred to as data pre-processing stage, meaning before we can go further into the data analysis stage, we have to perform data preparation first. Okay, so it's the pre-processing stage. And in the data preparation, we call data preparation as a methodology because it consists of few stages. So there are 4 stages that we have to perform, okay, in order to analyze and later visualize our data. So the first stage is to get the data. Okay, so you have to identify the data that you want to analyze. Okay, so it is called data gathering stage or data acquisition stage. Okay, so the data could be from primary sources, or it also can be found from secondary sources. Primary source means you conduct or you collect your data yourself, meaning that it could be from survey, from observation, from focus group discussion. Okay, so you use your own data, so that is the primary data. Okay, whereas the secondary is you use somebody else's data. The data could be public data, where you need to do the analysis towards the data and produce visualization. So it could be from both sources, primary or secondary. Then the next stage is you will be involved in data transformation stage. Okay, so in this data transformation, some of the activities, or we also call them as stages, you can combine the data, maybe from primary source of your own data and secondary source data that you found. So you might combine them. Okay, and then you need to structure the data according to the format that you want. Okay, and then later on is you organize the data. Okay, so it's a very complex process, because we want to make sure that we produce the right analysis, okay, and the right visualization, where it always refer to the way how we prepare our data. So this is a very crucial stage, okay, before we can go further in data analysis and also preparing data visualization. So what are the characteristics of data preparation activities? Okay, so they are very routine, meaning that we always have to do that. Okay, so for example, you can imagine in an organization that has transaction in daily basis. Okay, so you have to gather the data, and then for every month, for example, you might have to do the analysis of that data. So it becomes a routine activities. So meaning that it's a frequent activity that you have to do, and it is a very tedious work. Okay, tedious because why? Because you might combine the data, you have to structure the data and organize the data. So it is very tedious, and it takes some time, meaning that it's very time consuming. Okay, so so that's why it is essential, okay, to perform this data preparation, okay, as a prerequisite to put data in the context. Okay, in the context that in order we want to turn it into insights, okay, and eliminate bias or bad data. Okay, bias or bad data means any redundancy, incompleteness of data, or any incorrectness of data. So we want to avoid that. Okay, so because that could result into poor data quality. Okay, and then we want to create high quality data out of it, okay, for the best business intelligence analysis. Okay, so data preparation is an essential. Okay, meaning that it's crucial, it is important. We have to grow to, we cannot escape, okay, this process. Okay, so we have to go through this process as a prerequisite, okay, in order to put our data, okay, or to arrange our data into the format or the standard that we want, okay, so that it could be transformed, it could be turned into insights. Okay, insights mean what do we want to interpret from the data. Okay, so what are hidden information that you can interpret from the data that you have prepared. Okay, so insight could lead to some big decision making by organization. Okay, so that's why we have to prepare the data, combine, structure, and organize, so that we could see so many insights from 1,000 records of raw data that in the first place you would think that, oh, maybe it doesn't bring any meaning. Okay, but once we have prepared the data, so we could see many insights from the data. Okay, so you have to imagine that this data is not necessarily data that comes from a database. So in a database, okay, if you take the data from database, that is a very structured data. But you have to imagine that big data comes from various sources. Okay, so it could be semi-structured and also unstructured data. So data from the social media, okay, social media, those are data that is very complex to analyze because it doesn't have any specific standard. So how can you make sense of that data? Okay, so you have to, you know, go through all this process. Okay, gather the data, combine it, structure them, and then you can, and then only you can organize the data in order to produce insight. So that, for example, a business or organization can make decision from the input that they get from the social media. Okay, and of course, this data preparation is to eliminate any bias or bad data. So bad data meaning that if you have any redundant, incomplete, or incorrect data, so we want to avoid that. Okay, because those will result to poor data quality. Okay, and we want to create high data quality. Okay, high quality data for the best business intelligence. Okay, so it is equally important that the data is in the right format and scale for further analysis. Okay, so the right format meaning that you have defined the structure of your data. Okay, and also in the right scale. Okay, so the right scale means that you have to determine, okay, the measurement of the data, the characteristic of the data. So so why, this is a question. Okay, so why we need data preparation? Okay, so this is the reason why. Okay, so as we know, real world data are gathered during data collection process, and they contain noise. Okay, noise means mistakes or error. Okay, so some data could be missing and they are not in consistent basis. Okay, so they are, we call them, they are in, they could be in inconsistent format. So the data should be cleaned before further processing. And data cleaning has so many types. Okay, and then we will look further in the next slide. So what is the significance of data preparation? Okay, so it has been estimated that data preparation accounts for 60 to 80% of the time spent on a data mining project. So meaning that it takes more than half of the time, okay, when we involve in data analysis. So the data preparation actually takes more of the data analysis time, okay, in its cycle. Data preparation is very important because it helps to improve the quality of data, okay, and consequently helps to improve the quality of data analysis results. Okay, so that is why before we produce our analysis, because our analysis and our visualization will lead to a decision making process. So before we come to that stage, so we have to make sure that our data in a very good quality. Okay, so that's why data preparation is very important. Okay, so if you have heard, okay, a well-known saying garbage in and garbage out. So this is very relevant to this in this domain. Okay, so please Google this phrase. Okay, so this phrase is a phrase in computer science. Okay, so it is a concept that says incorrect or poor quality of input will produce faulty output. Okay, so it is the concept that flawed, or what we mean that nonsense input data can produce nonsense output or garbage. Okay, so so this is very relevant, okay, in this data preparation domain. And then one of the most important tasks in the data preparation is formatting. It is important that the collected data is in the correct format. Okay, so we have determined the format, okay, of how we want to structure our data. Okay, so data can be stored in a relational or non-SQL database, okay, depending upon the size of data. And also, it is tempting to use all the data that is available. So you have to understand that larger data set doesn't always guarantee high performance. Okay, so in fact, the larger the data set, the higher the computational cost. So what does this statement mean? Is that imagine that we have very large size of data. Okay, we have millions records of data with thousands or hundreds of data field or attributes. Okay, so and of course we have to perform, okay, the data preparation stage. Okay, so you have to structure the data, do data cleansing, and organize them. So it will increase the cost because it takes longer time to do that, and it needs more a labor. Okay, even though we can automate the process, but we still need a people or staff to ensure, okay, that the data cleansing, okay, has reached, okay, the quality level that is being set up by a particular organization. Okay, so it actually increase, okay, it can lead to very high computational costs. Okay, so it is better to use a subset of available data in the first run. So before you can, you know, probably your analysis is just to focus on certain part of the data. Okay, so you don't have to to prepare the whole data sets. Okay, so just try to focus, okay, on the subset of the data, okay, in the first run. But if the smaller subset of the data does not perform well, okay, in terms of precision and recall, so you can always use the whole data sets, okay, to do your data preparation in order to achieve or to achieve what do you want to analyze or what do you want to produce, okay, as a visualization, okay, for your target audience. Okay, so okay, formatting here means, for example, okay, if you can relate to a form where you have to fill up your information, okay, so you have to fill up your address. Okay, you might have seen that some form wants you to insert your street name, okay, in one field, okay, and then your postcode in another field, okay, and then you have to select your state, okay, and so which means that the data is being formatted into a very good structure instead of a form that just give you a text box and just ask the user, okay, to insert your address, okay, from your the house number until postcode and state. Okay, so in that kind of format, so it's very hard to analyze. Okay, so but if the data is structured in that sense, okay, by having a different column or different attribute, okay, for just to store information about address, so that is a good way of storing data, so that can help for an efficient data preparation and data analysis process.